Welcome to another edition of Hoehmtown Happenings. I'm Supervisor George Hohmann. Thanks for joining us. Well, we feel compelled to really start off this program on a sad note. As many of you know, on May 17th of this year, Councilman Mark Woods, the newest member of the Clarkstown Town Board, unexpectedly passed away. As our viewers will well know, Mark was a longtime participant and resident here within Clarkstown, worked very closely in the veteran community, and was a member of law enforcement as well. Mark had been on this program 4 times, once as a councilman just recently, also previously to talk about his work with veterans at Bridges, and prior to that as the Deputy Director of the Rockland County Veterans Service Agency. Mark was a decorated NYPD detective. He had actually worked for the Joint Terrorism Task Force, was a member of a number of veterans organizations. He had served in the Army for 2 distinct tours. Immediately out of college, he served in Europe during the Kosovo crisis and actually served under UN command. And then eventually was called back as a member of the NYPD into the U.S. Army and served in Iraq during combat and served under combat conditions. Mark ran for town board last year, his first time running for office, and he was successful representing the people of his ward in northern New City. We're all very upset with Mark's passing. He left an enormous hole within the town of Clarkstown and was a huge supporter and did incredible good working not just here in the town, but working with our veterans across Rockland County and across Clarkstown. Mark had recently been named at the very end of last year as the Rockland County Veteran of the Year for the current year. We were all shocked by his sudden passing, and of course our thoughts and prayers go out to his wife Jeannie, their daughter Maggie, and his son Ray. Again, we recall fondly and with great admiration the life and the service of Clarkstown Councilman Mark Woods. We're getting into the summer season, and you'll hear a lot about that with our great guest that we have on today's program. We have Dan Maloney, who's our Clarkstown Emergency Operations Officer. You'll hear a good bit about Matt Veronesi, who's new as our Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. We'll be talking a lot about the many events that we have during the summer season. And that'll be followed up in our veterans segment with Joel Hershkowitz, a Vietnam-era veteran, who will be talking about his service as well. All that and more on this edition of Hoehmtown Happenings. Stay tuned. Welcome back. My first guest is Officer Dan Maloney from the Clarkstown Police Department Emergency Management Office. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, how are you?
Great, and thank you for being, my guest. But more importantly, thank you for being just a real public servant. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about your background and your career, and not only in the police department, but 25 years in local volunteer fire departments, the last 15 with the Nanuet Fire Department. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So maybe we can just jump into your career a little bit, your background. Tell us a little bit about where you were born and how you decided to get into law enforcement.
Sure, absolutely. Born here in Rockland. Started in Pearl River, then we moved to New City. I'm a product of the Clarkstown School District. Graduated from North in '96. And then right after that, between a couple little jobs here and there, I had some family, an uncle, a cousin that was in law enforcement. And it was either FDNY or NYPD. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go the police route. Really embraced it, loved it. Started taking some tests to move up to Clarkstown. And when I got hired here, I had done about 10 years in the city. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my 13th year here now. I absolutely love it. For everything that the delusions and preconceptions of what you think law enforcement is going to be, Clarkstown actually delivered on that. It was more of the community aspect and the service-oriented police department that I thought that's what I wanted to do.
Right, and we're going to talk a bit about community policing and some of the preparedness that you're involved with. But let's just go back a little bit. So you were 10 years in New York City. So where were you, where'd you serve in the city? What precincts and what were some of the assignments you had?
Did most of my time in housing. I started down in PSA 7, which would have been the South Bronx, and then I did patrol in PSA 8, which would be like Castle Hill, Throgs Neck area. I did street crime for a while for the housing anti-crime, and then my last year was actually out of the 4-3 Precinct Detective Squad. Okay. So that was nice. That was something I got to wear a suit to work and start investigating crimes. It was pretty cool.
Right, and then the opportunity in Clarkstown, you took the test, and you were able to come up here. So, what was your first number of years like in Clarkstown? You were on patrol. What'd you do?
Right. So we come back to patrol, and that was always, they tell you right up front, during the interview, we know you left here, you were a detective, and now you're going to come up here and back on patrol. It was actually a pretty good transition. I liked it. It was much, like I said, it goes back to everything that you think a law enforcement career is going to be. Clarkstown kind of delivered on that. You're back into where you're back dealing with people that talking, finding out what's going on. A little bit of an aspect of going back into the investigative route with being a detective on patrol, so to speak, that you get to go and follow up on calls, follow up on reports, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I did it for several number of years. Just then I got to pick Nanuet and patrol Nanuet, and I kind of liked it there. So it was good, closer to home.
And how long now are you in emergency management? Replacing former Sergeant McCormick.
Yeah, so that was this September will be 3 years. Yeah. 3 years off the road, 3 years doing this. Yeah, this is I did it for a while, several years in addition to patrol with McCormick at the time, and after his promotion, I was his recommendation, and then along with Chief Wanamaker and yourself, thank you for putting the trust in me to take that position, and that became full time, and that's something that I enjoy.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but just last, so you also wear two hats, and it's interesting. You're one of the few officers in the department who's also an elected official. As a commissioner of the fire district. So just tell us about the last number of years, the last 15 years. You've been a firefighter, volunteer firefighter over in Nanuet. Talk a little bit about that experience. Obviously you're saying you were either going to be a police officer or a fireman, so you're able to do both, which is kind of unique. So tell us a little bit about your experience there. Yeah,
so again, loving law enforcement, and then a little bit of that fire bug was still in there, so I get into Nanuet. Nanuet's a very active house. I like it, a lot of runs. And then you start getting into the whole, where do you want to go? What do you want to do here? You can be a fireman, you can sit in the back, you can fight fires, that's noble in of itself, but then you want to start getting, as you get a little older, you start seeing little issues, little things that you think are wrong that maybe you can fix. So I start running for positions there. I worked my way up to become the president of the company. I just finished last year, I did my term. So I'm now currently an ex-president, but about 4 years ago, I saw wanting to take more of an active role on how money was being spent, policy being set, and that was more on the district side. So I ran for to become a district commissioner. It's a 5-year term, and I believe in 2025 I'm up for re-election. But it's much more now. You're into I don't want to say strictly the administrative side of it, but more like setting the budget and making sure you're in compliance with OSHA and PESH and NFPA, and really taking more of a role now in making sure that the membership is getting what they need. As you toe the line with your obligation to the taxpayers. These are your constituents. I'm representing them to make sure we can provide the best fire service from the Nanuet Fire Engine Company.
That's great, and again, thank you for your volunteer service there, because people don't realize it, but we have an all-volunteer service within the police, within the fire departments, and also within the ambulance corps primarily. So it's a really wonderful, service opportunity that you're volunteering. So let's quickly pivot into emergency management. So why don't you just give our viewers an opportunity, kind of a glimpse into the structure of our emergency management. You're our emergency management officer. Talk about what goes into that office and some of the things that you're involved with.
Sure. So it sort of becomes a sort of catch-all, right? There is very specific where I help with the emergency management safety plans, threat assessment with the schools. I work with a little bit on the from the OEM coordinator, and then you get into more building the resiliency of the town. What happens during natural events, whether it be rain, snow, keep our fingers crossed, not so much tornadoes, flooding, power outages, and of the such. COVID really put a tax on us. That fell under emergency management with the building up the supply of PPE, personal protective, the masks, and all that associated equipment. But so it's a full time of just making sure you're always preparing for the unknown of what everything's going great today. What could happen tomorrow? What's going to happen? How do we plan for that? And how do we get back into what we consider normal?
Right. And one of the things that you have to do is really help with putting together the coordination with all the town departments. Just recently we had a tabletop exercise with Orange and Rockland. Maybe you could explain what kind of goes into preparing for like a natural disaster or an emergency, flooding, heavy rainstorms, classically, a bad storm like a tropical storm that comes through. We'll have flooding, we'll have down wires, we'll have road closures. Talk about what goes into the planning for that.
Sure. So most times, and unless it's one of these like macro bursts that pop up, you have enough advance warning. National Weather Service is a great resource. My counterpart up at the Rockland County will send things out. Chris Jensen is great with sending out emails. Hey, listen, this is what's showing up. This is what we're looking for. And it's like a week out. So you start planning now. What do we got? And Orange and Rockland has theirs. Matt Mariconi, who we worked with at the tabletop, fantastic resource, friend to have in the business, right? So now they start watching. We start watching the weather. You're tracking. On our end for emergency management, I have 2 other guys that work with us. We will now tell them, like, hey, listen, this is what's coming up. Prepare to cancel plans. If there's going to be power outages, we put up generators at big intersections. We have our transfer switches so we can get the power back up at least to the lights if there's the traffic lights, if there's a power failure. And then it's a coordination with the highway. We have our Everbridge call-out system. I'll then talk to like the highway department. We'll talk to Bob Malone. Hey, listen, this is what's coming up. This is what the weather's calling for. All right, no problem. We'll let you know if we have to start bringing crews in. So there's that buildup of sort of like amassing your assets at the line, waiting to go. And then once Orange and Rockland, and this is where the tabletop that we participated in works great. So they know where the building is. They know where the EOC is. That's at 20 Maple. They know that when the button is pushed and there's an emergency, they know where they're coming down. They know me. I know them. We're going to set you up. And that's the CRT from Orange and Rockland is the community response team. They'll show up, and it begins now. We're going to do that like ICS, that incident command structure, where we'll have different people there to sort of help pool these as we're doing the resources together to help the communication among those different. So if there was a one head, we all share. It's like a unified command where we all have an equal seat at the table. But we're at the police station, and somebody has to sort of, you kind of steer how things are going.
Right.
And that's where OEM would come in. We would help them do that. And I sort of become just the quarterback of the event, where if anything comes up last minute, hey, listen, this happened, that happened. Can you reach out to Highway? Can we reach out to Veolia? Can we reach out? Yeah, I have all those contact information. I can call them. And then we will bring on an extra dispatcher. Member of the team is dispatch certified. They'll help with that when the calls start coming in. And you sort of just roll with it as things come up, and through experience and through what we've done before. The highway department's fantastic. O&R is really good with the coordinating, like if there's wires into a tree, which gets moved first? Do the wires have to get de-energized, or can we cut the tree out first? They'll go out and say, hey, listen, you know what? The wires have to be done first. You have to wait for our guys. Or if it's like, hey, the trees are just down, highway can take care of this, no problem. And we have those people sitting at the table with us, and we can tell them, yeah, send your crew out. Let's get that road open.
Yeah, and so it obviously now in 9 years as supervisor, I've been in the police department. We work closely with with all of our town departments, and so we have all the town departments that become a part of this. But it's just crazy. People don't realize, like, I remember being in for one of the tropical storms over in the police department, and we had like 300 calls that were waiting. Yeah. Like literally, people would call in, they were reporting a down wire, a down tree, flooding, all these, and literally the dispatch is recording it, but we were hours to be able to address these things. But literally hundreds and hundreds of calls that will come in during some of these events. So it really takes a lot of logistical coordination, and there's a lot of pre-planning that takes place. And what people don't realize is it's everything from having barricades pre-positioned to having additional resources ready to go, and then it's a 24/7 type thing. It's like literally you're, on a major tropical storm, we'll have people going round the clock, and not literally just getting a couple hours of sleep here and there, particularly through the beginning part of something like that, and then the cleanup afterwards, and then the after action reports. And I think you do a really good job of after action meetings as well, where we get together and have some discussions. It's a fascinating whole look into police work. Did you ever think you would get involved in emergency management?
No, it's sort of to go back to where it all comes back. It's sort of being getting to wear a police uniform and still be in law enforcement, but really sprinkles in the whole firefighting emergency service. It's sort of like the best of both worlds. I never saw it. I never saw it where I sort of dabbled in it a little bit with when McCormick was the head of the unit. I liked it, and to have this opportunity now, if you had told me 10 years ago when I interviewed 13 years ago, hey, listen, just so you know, you're going to be doing this, I wouldn't have. I'd be like, I don't see that.
Yeah. No, you're very involved in the community. I know you're involved with scouting with your kids and coaching with your kids as well. So somehow you make it all work. But you do a great job, and I want to thank you again for your service. I mean, this is an important aspect of the police department, emergency management, and it's not just the storms and what have you. You talked about threat assessments for the schools. I'm very proud of the resources that we put into all of our schools, but our police department has plans on all the critical infrastructure within the town, every school, all the houses of worship and churches, synagogues, the mosques, and there's some coordination that goes through your office as well, through our CARES unit that works with those folks as well. So God forbid if there's an episode or an incident in one of these locations, where the police, have to become involved. You become a critical asset with that as well. Yeah. So that's about all the time we have for right now. Again, I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for being such a wonderful guest.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
Teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
And welcome back. My first guest is Matt Veronesi, our new superintendent of Parks and Recreation here in the town of Clarkstown. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
So, Matt, you've been a great addition already to the town of Clarkstown, bringing a lot of new energy and vision and effort to this really key position as superintendent of our Parks and Recreation department. And I want to thank you for, already, you're only here a short period of time, but hit the ground running, a lot of new things we're working on, and just really, really great effort so far. Maybe before we get into some of the things that are new and what's going on, let's talk a little bit about your background.
Sure.
How long you've been involved in government, and what made you get involved with with Parks and Recreation?
So it started out, I was, after college, I was working in a baseball, softball training center. I was the director of instruction and general manager. I was given a lot of lessons, a lot of clinics, a lot of camps, throwing a lot. 3 shoulder surgeries later, the doctor's like, you got to go do something else, or you're not going to be able to lift up your arm for very long, for your lifetime. So I was kind of lost. Baseball is a big part of my life. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, ended up getting hurt. So that didn't work out. I wanted to work in sports.
So tell me a little bit about, before we get to that, so like, your baseball career, and you've worked in Major League Baseball?
Sure. So I played high school baseball at Arlington High School, played 2 years at junior college at Dutchess Community College, and then I played at Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale. So at the time, my major was sports management, so I started interning with the Florida Marlins, which now they're called the Miami Marlins. I was there for the World Series in 1997. It was an amazing experience. The 98 season, I was supposed to, when I graduated college, which was supposed to be in May, I was supposed to get a full-time job. And that's when Wayne Huizenga sold the team, and they dismantled. So it went from World Series to bottom of the barrel. They got rid of other major players. So the job was eliminated before I ever even graduated. So I came back to New York. I hooked up and started coaching college baseball, and worked in the athletic department of Dutchess Community College. From there, I got a job with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays and worked in the minor leagues as a clubhouse manager, helped with a little bit of the coaching of the younger players.
So what are some of the players that you had worked with that made it into the majors?
Sure. So for the major leagues, it was Bobby Bonilla was on the team, Al Leiter, Charles Johnson was a big catcher at the time. So there was some obviously some great major leaguers. But in the minor leagues, some of the ones, it was Josh Hamilton, who ended up playing. He had some problems with drugs, but he ended up having a pretty good major league career after he came back. There was a pitcher also who made the majors, Joe Kennedy. He was a left-handed pitcher. Jorge Cantu and Matt Diaz are the others that made the major leagues. But Josh Hamilton was the one that he was the one that
an all-star.
was all-star. Yeah, definitely.
You're also you somehow connected and became friends with Don Mattingly, right?
Yeah. So my favorite player growing up was Don Mattingly. Just my favorite. I loved him. Him and Dave Winfield was my second favorite. So when I was married and having children, my wife and I were trying to come up with names, and I was just joking around with her and said, "How about we name our son Mattingly?" And thinking she would never go for it. And she goes, "You know what? I like it. It's different. He could be called Matt, and I'm Matthew, but but he calls me Matthew." Yeah. And she went for it. I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So, me working in baseball, I think I went to a winter baseball meetings with my cousin wanted to go, so we went to it in Orlando, Florida. And I ran into him, and I introduced myself and said, "Hey, my son's Mattingly." And from that day on, we just kind of became, where we stayed in touch. And we, anytime, he's in New York with coaching the, at the time he was the manager of the Marlins, or now he's coaching with Toronto. We'll go down once or twice a year to, see him, and my kids, all, get to see him. And he's just, growing up, you have your idols, and sometimes they disappoint you, what kind of people they are. And you know what? He is everything you think he would be. A great guy, great person, good family man, believes in God. He's just everything you hope for your heroes to be. And, he's just, it's just great. I love staying in touch with him and email him back and forth. Or, one of my players last year, I coached high school baseball. One of my players got hurt pretty bad, and he was out for a while. And he was a big Yankee fan. And Don actually sent him a text message for me with a little video message. "Hey, Gianni, I want, feel better. You'll be back before you know it." And it just meant the world to him. So it's just the kind of person he is. It's really...
Oh, that's great. That's really great. And you've been involved in this line of work for a long period of time. Jokingly, it's not your first rodeo. I mean, you've been a superintendent for a long period of time before you came here. Just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Right. So after I ended up having the third shoulder surgery and the doctor said you have to move on, I was kind of lost. I mean, I loved what I did every day, coaching baseball, working with kids, baseball, softball. So I was like, what am I going to do now? I can't see myself going into an office and doing work that doesn't make me happy. I love to go to work every day and be happy. So I started applying for jobs, and one of the jobs that came up was recreation director for the town of New Windsor. When I go for an interview, I don't just go and interview. I had a whole plan. I came up with brochures and a website and things that I would want to do to improve the department. And, I got the job, and, 18 years later, I was director of Parks and Recreation and also Buildings and Grounds. And It was a great experience, unbelievable. I was very happy. But when this opportunity came up, it was a good growth opportunity for my family. And I thought, and the funny story is the first 2 town supervisors I worked for in New Windsor for 18 years were named George. I worked for George Green for 11 or 12 years, and then George Myers for, after that. So I only like to work for people named George, I think, because the new town supervisor, when George Myers retired, was named Steve. I like Steve and all, but I only like to work for people named George.
And you're a Yankee fan, so obviously that probably started because you like George
Steinbrenner.
Right. So like I said, you really hit the ground running. And you bring in a whole bunch of new ideas and a vision, and it really is a great energy too. One of the things that's new. Let's talk about. We're getting ready for and coming up. Depending on when this airs, either before or after, but in June 27th is our fireworks. And one of the things you brought to us is, sponsors, which we've never done. Maybe you could speak about that.
Right. So, the town spends a lot of money. People don't realize when we put on these, free events for the town, fireworks, concerts, things like that. The town spends a lot of money on putting these on, So in New Windsor, I had one big event that we dealt a lot with sponsors. It was called New Windsor Community Day. And it was an event that was, free parking, free admission. All rides are free for the people coming. Music on both, 2 stages. There's vendors, food vendors. So a family really could go and enjoy themselves with only spending money if they want to buy something for food. And that was all done with sponsorships. Not one tax dollar was paid for that. So I know I just started in May, and the fireworks is in June, but I wanted to try to get some sponsorships to help with offset the cost for the town. So maybe that money could be used for other events or other programs or camp scholarships or things like that. So we started, and you with your support and the town board support, we were able to do some sponsors, and so far we're doing pretty good. And hopefully that that money will be able to use. Now that we're saving money on the fireworks and the music and things like that, we can do other programs and other new events with these sponsorships. So businesses are such an important part of community and working with Parks and Rec, and it's all about me building relationships with the department and the local businesses. And it's not a donation, it's a sponsorship. How can them as a business get something out of it as well? Whether promotion or signs or or being able to come to the events and tell about their programs. Sponsorships are a key aspect of a good event, and I'm glad we're able to do that here now.
Right, and I know you got a couple of big sponsors, which is great. This year, a couple of new things. We're going to have WHUD covering the event.
Right, so we're going to actually, one of the things with a premier sponsor, which is a $5,000 sponsor, you want to give them promotion. So we're going to do a radio commercial, and those premier sponsors will be listed as sponsors on the radio commercial as well as a bunch of other things that we're going to be doing as well.
Which is great. So we've got the folks from WHUD, so they're going to send one of their 100.7, so Mike and Casey, so somebody from potentially the morning show or one of their on-air talents going to be at the fireworks. They're going to have a table,
a wheel, things like that.
Spin the wheel. You get promotional materials, and they're going to do a couple live updates.
Live updates during the event. Yeah,
during the event.
So it should be exciting.
Yeah, and we're expanding our food trucks that are coming there. It really looks like it's going to be a great event.
Yeah,
right?
I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fireworks are great to begin with, but then you throw some family fun entertainment in with food, great food. Music. It's really an awesome night, and I think everybody should go out. It's going to be a good time.
So we're coming into the summer months and through the summer months, as people are going to be watching this. So we've got our summer concert series. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So in my previous job, we had 8 summer concerts, which were great. Now in Clarkstown, we have over 20. So that's a great night out for family. Again, you want to go and have a fun night. It's expensive to have kids, right? It's expensive to do things nowadays. But you can go out to this event and just enjoy the music, enjoy the kids can play in the back, and it's just a great night out. And we have over 20 of them, which is an amazing opportunity. There's we have Lake Nanuet on Wednesday nights. We have Kevin Landau Park at lunchtime on Fridays, which was your idea. I heard it was a great, people can have their lunch and listen to music. And then there's different other events at the Hamlets in West Nyack and Congers. I think they're going to put up the dates on the screen, but also you can check out the Park and and Rec website, but just so many great family event opportunities for families to go out and have a good time and really not have to spend any money doing it.
And we're blessed in Clarkstown. We have 3 pools. Some of our neighboring towns, like Orangetown, doesn't have any pool. We've got 3, including Lake Nanuet, which is I think the second largest outdoor pool in the entire state, from what I've been told. And then we have the Germans complex, as well as Congers, which is a smaller pool. Each caters to our residents, and they're all open by the end of the month. Serendipity, kicks off the pool season, on the 15th, and then I think Lake Nanuet opens up by the 29th. So we've got a full season, and they'll run all the way through Labor Day. But tell us about getting ready for the pools, lifeguards and everything else.
Sure. So that's been my biggest adjustment. I haven't had any experience with pools in the public aspect working. I have my own pool at home, but so that's definitely adjustment work. Hiring all the lifeguards and dealing with the people that do the chemicals and getting the pools operational. But it's something that I look forward to learning more about, and I have great staff. Aquatics director Katie Jewett, assistant aquatics directors are great. The DEFM, which are the facility and maintenance guys, have all been terrific. So it's definitely a great team, and I'm looking forward to learning the whole process myself and just getting better at it. And it's amazing that we have 3 pools, which a lot of towns don't have any, like you said.
Right.
But for us to have 3, I mean, it just gives so much opportunity. Me going to work every day, I love going to work because we get to bring families together in Parks and Recreation, and that's what it's all about. Pools, concerts, camps. We get to make people happy and spend time with their families, and there's no better job to be able to go to work every day where you can make families happy because you offer them so many great Parks and Rec opportunities. Oh no, absolutely. In fact, I think one of the events that we had when you just first started, just when a couple weeks after you started, was the family camp out at Congers Lake, and how great that was, and how we had like 85 families that participated, and just something unique. Hats off to, I know it's been around a long time, whoever came up with that idea is amazing. I'm a part of a group, that recreation professionals of Orange County, Dutchess, Putnam, Ulster, Rockland, Sullivan counties, and we meet once a month. And that's something I'm going to bring up at the meetings, because you know what? Every town should be doing this. It's a great idea. I've never heard of it before, but for families to be able to camp out in the park, we had a cookout for them, hamburgers, hot dogs. There was a movie. They had s'mores around the campfire. I mean, it's just such a great a great event, and I was so impressed, and the staff did an amazing job. It's something that I think every town should be really doing, and hats off to Clarkstown for coming up with that.
So I know you've got a lot of programming ideas, and we're almost out of time, but maybe talk about some of the things you're looking to work on going forward.
Yeah, sure. I want to get the Park and Rec more exposure in terms of let people know everything we're doing, right? I think people that go to the events, they love them, but not everybody knows everything we're doing. So I want to really do more with social media, more with the TV network that the station is on, and just to really show everyone all the great programs and events that we do have existing, and try to get where they can see it for themselves, as well as we want to definitely bring in some new things too. We talked about maybe doing a senior citizen health fair picnic that we want to try to come up with in August. We want to definitely do more events that we bring families together. I'd like to eventually, I don't know how you feel about it, but eventually do some kind of community day type event in the future as well, where we can maybe have some rides or things like that as well. I would love to discuss that.
Absolutely. We've talked about all of these things, and looking forward to doing them, and getting you with more programming on this channel as well. We've got some great stuff, but I think we could do a lot more with the staff that we have, with preparing, everything from exercise videos to how-to recreation videos as well.
Absolutely.
So we're looking forward to that. Well, Matt, we're about out of time, but if folks want to get in touch with you, how did they do that?
Yeah, sure. You can email me at the m.veronesi, so it's m.veronesi@clarkstown.gov, or you can call the Recreation Department at 845-639-6200, and I would be glad to meet every one of you at the events, concerts, or the fireworks. Definitely want to see everyone out, and say hi when you see me, please.
So Matt, great start. Really looking forward to working with you for many years to come. And
you can't retire anytime soon because I only work for George's. Okay.
That's it. But great having you here, and thank you for your energy, your excitement, and your vision. It's obvious as people meet you. I hear from our seniors already. You've gone around, and our staff and are like, this is great. Matt's got such energy and vision. So really looking forward to you helping to take a great department and make it even greater.
Yeah, it's easy when you have support from the supervisor and town board, which we do here in Clarkstown, so I want to thank you guys for that as well.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music and we talked. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic. Your honesty gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted in my own life.
And I wanted you to know, from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now, that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, in whatever you do.
Talk, they hear you.
Welcome back. In our veteran segment, our next guest is Joel Hershkowitz, a Vietnam-era veteran and U.S. Army veteran, also the commander of the Jewish War Veterans here in Rockland County. Welcome, Joel.
My pleasure to be here.
So, Joel, we've been trying to get you on this program for so long,
Right.
And I'm delighted that you're on.
Right.
You do so much in our community with the Jewish war vets. You run our Memorial Day ceremony in Nanuet at the train station.
Right.
You're involved in so much. But before we get to any of that, you're our veteran segment, and you're a Korean, served in Korea, but a Vietnam-era vet.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about your background, where you were born and raised, and how you ended up in the Army.
I was born in the Grand Concourse, and I'm a war baby. My father was in the Battle of the Bulge. He's a bigger hero than I am. He was awarded the Bronze Star, crawled out of his tank, and pulled out 3 men who were injured in the foxhole and brought them back to safety in the tank, and he was awarded the Bronze Star for that.
Wow.
He then went on to Buchenwald's, helping to liberate camps there.
Wow.
That's my father. My family was entirely wiped out. They were all from, my father's family was from Romania, and my mother's family was from Poland and Latvia. So, no family.
I'm very sorry.
So that's how I started. I learned about that when I was 8, 9 years old, and then I learned my father showing me pictures of Buchenwald, and that was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in the Bronx, and everything was fine. I loved the Bronx. Played a lot of tennis. I was on the police athletic league baseball team for a while. And so I love sports. I went to Yankee Stadium. My biggest thing with Yankee Stadium, I was there when Mickey Mantle hit the facade, the 1956 Memorial Day. We're talking about Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That was Memorial Day, 1956. So a memory that I always have.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is I was with two of my friends and his father. And the next year, they opened up the Tappan Zee Bridge, and he moved here to New City.
Oh, wow.
And I always pass the house. It's about a mile from my house. Every time I drive by there, that's where he was. I was here many times.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing here on Route 304. It was empty. And not that way.
So you grew up in the Bronx, and then eventually the Army comes calling for you, right?
The Army came calling, and I was telling you, it's called in June of 1966 to go for a physical. And in July of 1966, I was drafted with my whole group. It was about 250 of us in that whole area of the Bronx where I lived. We all all went at the same time to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I took basic training there. And from there, I was one of only 6 people who went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Don't ask me why, but I went into armor training.
So you followed your dad into the army?
Yes, I followed my dad into armor. And that's another story I'll tell you later. So I was in armor training, and about the 6th week, there was a whole group, different platoons, and suddenly they were told, given orders to go to Vietnam. So they left after 6 weeks instead of 8 weeks. That's what was happening in Vietnam at the time. And I was just waiting for my orders to go there as well. But on the 7th week, I got orders to go to Korea. Myself and this gentleman, George Drucker, and I both would go. And we went home for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then I took a plane out to California, Fort Lewis, Washington, and George Drucker did also a different plane, but somehow we got a flight call together, and we both went to Korea, and we were in Korea. Everybody's getting separated in different places, and George Drucker and I wound up in the same truck going to Company A, 1st Battalion, 72nd Armor, and then we wound up in the same platoon.
Wow.
And I was assigned a tank, and that was a critical tank because my tank had a searchlight on it and other security surveillance equipment. And so even though I was in 1st Battalion, 72nd Armor, I wound up going with the 1st Battalion, 23rd Infantry right on the DMZ. And yes, I was right on the DMZ with them.
So that you know, certainly heightened. It's a heightened time where it's a time of war, Vietnam. Excuse me, time of war in Vietnam,
Right.
and obviously heightened security during the Cold War.
Right.
What was it like being on the DMZ?
Well, the interesting thing is when I went to Korea, they said, well, you're going to be in a police action. That was another way of saying, well, there's a war in Vietnam, so we can't call what's still going on in Korea a war, so we'll call it a police action. Mm-hmm. But there was fighting going on, and it was pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And I was with this group, but we would rotate out with other groups helping them, supporting them. So while I was away, 18 of the men that I was with, there was a sabotage of the camp, which was very close to the DMZ. Can't tell you how many meters away, and the camp was just destroyed. And 18 men that I was with, I don't want to cry here, were gone. And it was very painful to me because I was with them, and a lot of them had showed me pictures of their family and their child that was born while they were away, and would never see them. So that was
very sad. And you don't really think about that or hear about that, but we do have soldiers that over in Korea that are killed, that do you know, that do get shot at.
Right.
You know, it's rarer these days, but certainly that was an instance where, you know, losing 18 soldiers, that would be like national news. But it was at a time during the Vietnam War where we were losing thousands.
You would find it on page 15 of the Post at that time.
Right.
It wasn't important. It was important to me. It's important to my father that I wrote him I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just lucky that I'm here, and I'm not. And we would transfer out. We would rotate out with other people, other groups. I'm here because I had rotated out at that time, and we went back the next day to see what happened. There was nothing there, just some concrete on the ground. Wow. So that was.
Well, I'm very sorry, and those 18 folks are heroes, gave their lives for our country.
Yeah.
So what happened after your time in Korea? So you were in Korea for the better part of a year?
I was extended in Korea because, if you remember the Pueblo crisis, in January I had gotten orders to go home in February. That would have been 13 months. But 31 people tried to went through the Rock Army, which was just to the east of us, not in our sector, and got down to Seoul and tried to assassinate the president at that time. Again, these things not right on the headlines. They failed, but then they tried to come back through our sector. And we were short men because of the Tet Offensive going on in Korea. We weren't getting any replacements. And then the Pueblo was captured. And so my orders that were on the bulletin board were taken down, and I wound up staying another month before we were able to get some replacements. When I finally left, I was able to go home for a month and stay with my family. And then I had orders to go out to Fort Hood in Texas. And there I helped train other soldiers during that time.
And after your time in the military, then you went on with your career, got married. Tell us a little bit about
interesting.
your family.
Well, I came back. I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University and I got my degree. I was working and there was a time when many Russians were allowed to come to the United States in a wheat deal. Many of them went to Brooklyn, but some families came to the Bronx, and one family went opposite me, and it turned out that my wife I would meet my wife that way. And my wife's family was the same. I could tell you the same story. She came from Ukraine. Their whole family was wiped out. What should have been her uncle, her father's brother, was running from the Nazis. He tried to hide in an attic someplace. Somebody pointed him out, and that was the end of him. Her grandmother starved to death. Same stories that I could tell happened. So that's how we grew up. We got married together.
Yeah.
And so we lived in Yonkers for many years. My wife worked for the school system there. And I've been in safety and security for many years. I still am. But as the kids got bigger, we looked for a nice house. And although we looked all over Yonkers, we were told the school system here in Clarkstown was great, and the houses were bigger, and the taxes were lower.
Right.
And that's what happened. So we moved here. We found this great house, which we've been living here since 1998. And
you have two boys, right?
I have two boys who went to school here, and they're both in the government, doing well now. But what happened?
No, that's great. But let's talk about your work involved in a bunch of veterans organizations as well. So you're the commander of the Jewish War Veterans for our area, and in addition to that, you actually run it's your group and your post, with some help that runs the Memorial Day service over in Nanuet. So talk to us about the Jewish War Vets and why that's important to you and some of the things that they do.
Okay, so I came here in 1998, in June of 1998. I'm here 3 days, and my wife says, you have to join the Jewish War Veterans. And she called and said, my husband wants to join the Jewish War Veterans. Well, she knew my background, obviously. So they called, and I joined the Jewish War Veterans, and we had meetings. There was the end of the one war in Iraq, and soldiers coming back, and we were helping soldiers there coming back. And like I said, we had these meetings. There were 40 people coming to every meeting. But little by little, we lost a lot. We still have about 25 guys in the Jewish War Veterans here in Rockland County, but I've seen too many of them go. But when the Iraq War started, what's the
Afghanistan?
No, before that, the
Gulf War?
Not the Gulf War, the Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we started sending packages overseas. We had the Palisades Mall gave us a room downstairs, and people were sending us packages, canned goods, all kinds of stuff, and we were storing them in a room, and about every weekend we would load them up. We had people who would take them up to the Air Force Base up in Newburgh, and they were sending them overseas for us and distributing for us. And they did that for a while, and then the Pentagon said they're going to switch to DHL and FedEx. Well, that was great for them, but they wouldn't take our packages.
Right.
So we wound up on all the street corners getting money along Route 59, Exit 11,
Right.
and Middletown Road, and Airmont Road, and Rockland Bakery, and we were collecting money. And each package to send out was quite a bit of money.
Right.
They were filled up, but it cost us quite a bit of money. The interesting thing is, we had two guys who lost their lives helping us, two veterans. One was taking the skid up to the post office on the 3rd floor of the Palisades Mall, and he tripped, he fell, got a concussion. Didn't seem that bad, but it got worse, and he passed away. And another gentleman was decided that he was going to do some work on Wednesday instead of the Saturday and Sunday. So he's down in Palisades Mall in the lower level, and I got a call 7 o'clock at night, please help him, he's not feeling well. And I went down there, and he had 2 skids partially done. He's sitting on a chair. Please fix it up, finish it for me. And I did. He said, I'm going to go to the doctor tomorrow, find out what's the matter with me. Well, he needed a bypass. He got that, but 2 weeks later, he passed away. So we lost a couple of guys that way. But we still send packages until the war was over. In the meantime, my son decided he was 2 years of college, and he's ready to start the 3rd year of college. We have all his boxes in the living room, ready to go in the car for him to go, and he's running late. And I look at my clock and my watch, and I said, you got to get up, you got to go. And he comes out of the room, and he says, Dad, I think I forgot to tell you, I joined the Marines. Excuse me? Well, he joined the Marines because he said, Dad, you were in the Army, your father was in the Army, there's no reason they need me right now, I'm going to go. So he went into the Marines, and the interesting thing is about that story in itself is that my my in-laws are from Russia. Well, he couldn't get any letters for about 6-7 weeks, but when he got one, it's from his grandmother, and it's written in Russian. I love you very much, and the platoon sergeant gives him the letter and says, what is this? He says, well, it's in Russian. He says, you a Russian spy? He says, no, my grandmother is Russian. Well, anyway, he took him to some other people and says, who were in Afghanistan, and they talked to him, and he answered them in Russian. Well, that was what happened after that. It led him to get into out west and be in the service doing intelligence work. So he went to Iraq and did intelligence work, and got out, and he finished college, and while he was in college he met his wife there. So
this is a long tradition of
so we
service
have
in the
three generation family. And before I tell you about the Jewish War veterans, last year my son came over to me, he says, Dad, we should go to Normandy and see where my father went. So my whole family went, and we went to Normandy. He was not in the group that came across, but his 3rd Armored Division went through Normandy. And so we took a whole bunch of pictures there. And so when I came home, I took the picture of my son and myself, and I imposed my father's picture there, and I have a picture in my house, in my office, of the 3 of us.
Oh, nice.
And great picture. So that's that story. But
So we're running out of time.
Okay, so I joined. I was in many years. I was in Jewish war veterans doing these packages. Then that war ended, and people started coming. Soldiers started coming across back to the States and back here in New City, and they needed help. They have families. They have children. And we found out that they were not doing well, and children were missing lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with Susan at the Veteran Service Agency, helping her with McDonald's cards, and we helping them by ourselves, and we're still doing that. And then the older people that are with us, they need our help too. So we still help them, and that's in one way or another we help them. And some cases I've helped them where, especially the older people, the water heater broke.
Yeah.
They have no money to fix the water heater. We're there for them, and that goes on all the time. Things like that.
You do such wonderful work with the Jewish war vets. I'm always so impressed when I go either to Congregation Shir Shalom or in the past it was up at the Montebello synagogue, but where the Jewish war vets would have some of their breakfasts.
I've had many breakfasts. I know you've come to conventions that we've had, but for many years I've had breakfasts on once a month at Shir Shalom when it was called New City Jewish Center. And again, little by little, we've lost people, but we still try and get together whenever possible. And I've done that ceremony at Memorial Day for many years with what do you call it, the American Legion. And so I run it. I get people together. I'm on the internet every day for business, but I see every time there's a helicopter crash or some other incident, I get the names, I write them down, and at every Memorial Day, I read off the names. So
which I think is so poignant because, not to cut you off, but every one of these ceremonies, every year people don't realize it. People die in the military.
Right.
They're serving, and they may not be killed in wartime.
Right.
Some of them are.
Right.
But they're killed in training exercises. Right. They lose their lives, and they shouldn't be forgotten. And it's large numbers. It's dozens every year.
And some of them are overseas, and they are in action. And unfortunately.
Lose their lives or
they lose their lives that way. So last year there was 47 names. Wow. And this year I'm already keeping count. I think I have 15 already. And we're in June. So that will be next year's list.
Yeah.
But
I want to thank you though for running that service with such dignity, and you're the only one, by the way, out of all the services that are done, you're the only one at the Memorial Day services that commemorates those that are killed each year or die each year in service. Right. And that's to be commended because nobody should be forgotten. There's an old saying that's been, I think it was attributed anonymously, and it talks about a person dies twice. When they actually die, and then the last time that somebody mentions their name is like the second time that they figuratively die. And so you're keeping the memories of these folks alive by mentioning their name, and losing their life in service, they should be recalled.
We also put flags and wreaths out at the different cemeteries here, and there are people who don't live in this area who call us and give us the gravesite, and we'll put whatever they want, a flag or a wreath over there.
So you're continuing your service with that. Well, Joel, I want to thank you. You've been a wonderful guest, but I want to thank you for your service, and not just your service, but the service of your entire family, your father, your son. And I know both of your sons, we didn't get into specifics, but they're both in very key, critical, important positions within the government, and you're proud of your sons and what they do. But I want to thank you for your service to this country, your service to the veterans organizations and to your fellow vets, and for the service of your sons as well. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
You know, teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank my guest, Officer Dan Maloney from Clarkstown Police Department Emergency Management, Matt Veronesi, our Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, and Joel Hershkowitz in our Veterans segment. Until next time, I'm Supervisor George Hoehmtown. Thank you for joining us.